Hello, friends, and welcome to a new series aimed to make you better at golf every day. This is Golf 101. So, most of the videos in this series are going to be more on the short side. They're going to be quick little tips, quick little terms that you should know about golf. This video itself, the intro is going to be a little longer. This one, we're talking about all the different parts of the club, and I'm going to break those down a little bit in some shorter videos. But this is the real in depth analysis of every part of the golf club, what they're used for, and how they impact your swing and your golf game. So now that we have that out of the way, let's start with the most important and often most overlooked part of the golf club, and that is the grip here. So the reason the grip is so important is it's the only form of contact that is in between your body and the golf ball. So this is the big connector connecting the golf ball to the club to your hands to the rest of your body. This is your only point of contact with anything in the world of golf. So whatever we do with the grip is going to greatly impact the rest of our golf swing. So in terms of impacting the actual ball flight and golf swing itself, the main thing we're looking at with grip is the way that your hands rest on the golf club. And for that, we're looking at three possible scenarios. So scenario one is that you have a neutral grip. Neutral grip is when you're gripping the golf club, your thumbs go straight down the shaft here and point directly down toward the club face and the golf ball. This just gets you all squared up at impact. The club face is square. Your hands and arms aren't really twisted in either way. It's generally a good starting point for when you're gripping the golf club. After that, we have weak and strong grips. So a weak grip is where the thumbs are pointed more over toward the lead side of the shaft. Your lead hand is going to be more underneath the shaft, and your trail hand is going to be more on top of the shaft. So if we do this, and we have the club head pointed square, and then we were to make the thumbs neutral, going straight down, and untwist our arms, you'll see that the club face opens here. That's very important to know because as we approach impact, our hands are going to want to get more neutral. So we may see some tendencies with opening the club face if our grip is on the weaker side. The strong side is just the absolute inverse of this. So thumbs are going to be more toward the trail side of the golf club. Your lead hand is going to be more on top, trail hand is going to be more on the bottom. And as you see, if we start with a strong grip and we make our grip neutral, it's going to close down that face. So the tendency with a strong grip is a more closed face at impact if we are to make the hands more neutral as we approach the golf ball. So another thing to be aware of is how we are physically grabbing the golf club itself. So there are three very common grip types in this aspect. We have 10 finger or baseball grip, interlock grip, and overlap grip. So 10 finger slash baseball grip is where we take our lead hand, put it on the butt end of the club here, and then our trail hand comes in just right next to it. Nothing's overlapping, nothing's locking. It's just all the fingers all lined up like this, thumbs down the shaft. And this is really great for if you have smaller hands or if you want to get more active hands in the golf swing, as it allows you to kind of manipulate the wrists and manipulate the hands a little bit more and kind of generate some more handiness in the golf swing. Next, with interlock grip, we're going to start with the same lead hand on the butt end of the club here. And then we're going to take that index finger out and we're going to bring in our other hand and we're going to lock the trail hand pinky and the lead hand index finger here. Thumb still going down the shaft. And what this is going to do is this allows us to still maintain some higher grip pressure, just like the baseball or 10 finger grip. But this is going to give us a little bit more control over the club face than our baseball grip is going to give us. And finally, we have the overlap grip. So for this, again, lead hand is going to be on the butt end of the shaft here. And then we are going to bring in our other hand, but instead of interlocking these two fingers here, we are going to just put the pinky finger of our trail hand on top of the index finger of the lead hand. So when you do this, you'll notice you lose a little bit of that grip pressure. You can't really feel it as much in your right hand. This is great for golfers who have much larger hands or who want to have less active hands in the golf swing. especially if you are trying to get that that trail hand a lot less active. This will make it to where you can't really grip the club as hard, which is something that a lot of golfers look for to kind of ease the tension in their golf swing and to get the hands less involved. And the last thing to talk about with grip is the size of the grip itself. So we have a couple different sizes, and we can kind of scale those to whatever your hand size is. But ideally, what we're looking for is some comfort in the grip when you're grabbing the golf club. So when we're gripping the golf club, we want our fingers to be able to reach around. We don't want them to be kind of only halfway on the club. We want them to be able to reach around, but we don't want them jammed up here in the palm. We want either it to be lightly touching the palm, or we want maybe a tiny bit of space depending on what's more comfortable for you. And this way we won't be grabbing the club so tightly that we are really adding tension to our golf swing, but we also have a good enough grasp on the golf club that we can make an athletic and comfortable motion every time we swing it. And when it comes to grip sizes, we have a couple different sizes and certain terms that we use. So for a normal regular grip, which would be 0.9 inches in diameter, that is going to be a standard grip for you. That's what I have here. That's good for if you have hands, let's say you have like a small or a medium-sized glove. Standard's usually pretty good for you. The next size up we have is mid-size. That's the equivalent of putting 2 layers of tape under a standard grip. A mid-size grip is going to be 0.93 inches in diameter. So each layer of tape that you add is going to be 0.15 inches. And then +4, the equivalent of putting 4 racks of tape under here, would be 0.96 inches in diameter. All right, so now moving our way down the golf club, we've talked about the grip. We're going to talk about the shaft next. So the specs of a shaft are very important and often have a lot of hidden characteristics that a lot of people don't know about. A lot of people know about the weight and the flex of the shaft, but the shaft is actually split up into 3 parts to where the flex of the grip, the middle, and the end of the club are going to be slightly different in some cases. So this is where getting a fitter who really knows what they're talking about is very important, because a 100-gram stiff flex shaft from 2 different brands could have different flex points in different parts of the shaft, could have a different kick point, which determines the height and trajectory of our golf ball. And those 2 shafts, even though they say they are the same specs, could be built and composed very differently and could offer very different results for your golf swing. So along with the actual specs of a shaft being different between the grip, the middle, and the end of the shaft, the materials that make up the shaft are also different as well. So we have the 2 main ones, the 2 common ones these days are graphite and steel. So we have a steel shaft here. Steel shafts are going to be heavier than graphite shafts, and these shafts are going to be usually a more consistent distance control shaft. So graphite shafts, a little lighter, a little more flexible for the most part, although there are different cases. A graphite shaft, you're usually going to notice more club head speed, but then you can also notice a bigger dispersion in your distance. So your graphite shafts are usually what you have in your woods, whereas most people play steel shafts in their irons, gives them more consistent distance control, and you'll see most people continue the steel shafts through their wedges and their putter as well. And the last thing to know about shafts is their diameter can change as well. So you have 2 different types of diameters with shafts. You either have a parallel tip where the shaft is the same diameter all the way through, or in this case, we have a tapered tip. So it's a little hard to see here, but the grip end of the club, the shaft down here is a little bigger in diameter. And as we approach the club head, it tapers down and gets a little bit narrower as we go down. And the next thing we have on the golf club is the ferrule. All this really does is it provides a nice aesthetic, clean look to connect the shaft to the club head here. It's just to make sure that we don't have a difference in diameter between the shaft and the club head, and it kind of creates that nice little, nice smooth look to the club. Makes it to where there's not a jagged edge here, but in terms of your golf swing, it doesn't really do anything. So now we've reached the dreaded hosel of the golf club. So the hosel, it connects the club face to the shaft here. So the ferrule a very aesthetic piece right here to just make it look smooth, make no jagged edges here, and also to kind of help keep the club head on the actual golf shaft. Uh, but the hosel is more of pairing the club face instead of the club head to the shaft here. So it's making sure that we have the right amount of loft, the right lie angle, uh, everything lined up perfectly. So when we set up to the golf ball, we can set up facing this way and be squared this way. It's all just to kind of get the club on the right angle for us to make the best swing into the golf ball as possible. And when we're talking about the hosel, one of the important things to remember is that hosels have offset. Depending on what irons you play and how you refit, you might have more than others, but offset is how much the shaft is in front of the club head here. Uh, Offset is not a bad thing, it's not a good thing, it's just something that some clubs have, other clubs have less of. It's all about getting fit for the right amount of offset for your golf game. But what it does is it typically allows you more time to get the club face squared at impact, and it generally helps you to add more loft to the golf ball and get higher, more forgiving shots. So now talking about the actual club head, this is where a lot of our ball flight and spin kind of gets determined here. So the club head itself is just the entire golf club part here, the entire part that is down there to make contact with the golf ball. Inside the club head, you have the club face, which is where we always want to make contact. And the club face is split up into the center, into the heel, which is close to the shaft, and the toe, which is away from the shaft. In a future video, we're going to talk about gear effect, which is a huge, very important aspect of determining how the ball spins given where the contact was made on the golf club. But as a general rule of thumb, anything on the heel is going to produce a little bit more fade bias spin, and anything on the toe is going to produce more of a draw bias spin. So one more very important thing about the club face is the grooves. So as you can see here, I have an old wedge, so we have a little bit of a wear mark here. But when we're looking at a club face, we want to make sure to keep the club face clean and especially the grooves clean. We want to get in there with either a tee or a groove cleaner or a brush or something. And we want to make sure that there's no dirt, there's no anything built up in the grooves here, as that will reduce the amount of friction between the golf ball and the grooves here. And the friction that we get between the golf ball and the grooves is what generates spin and what helps us to hit those nice shots that hit and stick on the green. So next, as we leave the club face and approach the sole of the golf club, we have the leading edge here. So the leading edge, you probably are pretty aware, it digs into the ground and creates a divot. When we are talking about the leading edge, we want to utilize this digging at the right time in the right scenarios. So with iron shots, we want it to dig after the golf ball, creating a nice ball first contact and a divot after the ball. With our wedges, it gets a little more complicated. There are some shots we want some dig, there are some shots we don't want to dig. But really what we want to do is look scenario by scenario and see how much we want to utilize this and manipulate the club to really either allow the club to dig or to not allow it to dig, which leads us to our next part of the club. The next part of the club is the bounce. And we've talked about the bounce in the past, but as a little refresher, the bounce is a little bit of space you have in between the ground and the leading edge here. And what that is going to do is it's going to allow you to hit these nice wedge shots where we don't have to worry about the leading edge digging into the ground, and we can hit a nice ball first shot where the club just kind of skips off the ground and we don't have to worry about chunking it, and we can just kind of swing away and utilize the bounce to kind of return the club up off the turf without having it grab the turf itself. When getting fit and finding out what wedges and what bounce is best for you, a lot of people really overlook the bounce as a spec to really get fit for. But it's very important to kind of match up the bounce with your swing, the type of turf you're playing on, all that good stuff. So as a general rule of thumb, the steeper your swing is, the more bounce you need. as the steeper your swing is, the more likely it is for the leading edge to grab and dig there. So if we're coming in extremely over the top and we like that kind of shot, we're going to want to increase the bounce that we have to help us to not really grab the turf as we come in very steep. Another thing we can do is we can manipulate the bounce ourselves. So by opening up the club face, we can kind of take the leading edge up and out of the question a little bit, and that can allow us to really have a little bit more bounce interaction with the turf instead of bringing the leading edge into play. And then when we're talking about turf, we really want to kind of utilize the bounce that we get for the turf that we'll be playing on. So if you're playing golf in one specific area, maybe even one course that you really frequent, really test out the turf, see what you have. The firmer the turf, the less bounce you want, and the softer and spongier the turf, the more bounce you want. If we have softer grass, I'm sure you know, we have more of a chance of the club digging into the ground. It takes less effort to really kind of create a divot. So we want more bounce in that scenario in order to kind of help us to not really hit those chunk shots, especially around the green. So this brings us to the end of our tour of the golf club. I used a wedge for this one simply because of the bounce and the leading edge. Those aspects of the golf club are going to be a lot more important in a short game shot than it would for like a full swing iron shot. Although your irons are still going to have a leading edge and a bounce and everything, it's much more important to be able to utilize this information for a wedge than for an iron shot. And the bounce and leading edge are paramount to your success around the greens with the short game. Whereas with iron shots, you can usually get away with a little more with a full swing, not really needing to manipulate the bounce at all or really do anything about the leading edge at all. Additionally, your putters are really going to be the only ones that differ on the top half of the club in terms of anything truly drastically different. The grips for putters, all different shapes and sizes, very different. But if you want any information on that, let me know. I'd love to share some information about putters. Might be coming in a future video, we'll see. But if you had any questions about anything about the golf club, anything you wish that I covered that I didn't, or anything that you kind of were unsure of or that you need some more clarification on, leave me a comment. I'd love to answer those. And as always, let's play for par.